It's another Thunder Thursday on News OK Live. I'm Mike Sherman, sports editor of the Oklahoman, hanging out with our Thunder coverage team. Of course, Thunder Thursdays are sponsored by our good friends at Advent Heat, Air, and Plumbing. On call 24/7 for Thunder fans. Joining us as always is our Thunder coverage team from, where you at, Darnell?
I'm at home.
From his home in Northwest Oklahoma City, Thunder beat writer Darnell Mayberry. From his home in Edmond, Oklahoma, Thunder beat writer John Rohde. And from Lloyd Noble Center in Norman, columnist Jenny Carlson. Jenny, explain, what are you doing in Norman?
Yeah, I'm down here working on a story, going to meet a couple that has kind of a unique history. They adopted Wayman Tisdale back in 1982, so 30 seasons ago. They were adoptive parents of Wayman Tisdales. I'm meeting up with them, and just because of our meeting time, I needed to get here. So here I am at Lloyd Noble chatting about the Thunder. Somebody needs to adopt, hug, do something for the Oklahoma Sooners basketball team. They lost in the first round or the second round of the Big 12 tournament today, but that's another hangout. We're hanging out on the Thunder, and we'll start here. Guys, win or lose on Friday against Orlando, the Thunder is better than it was last year. When I say that, I say, so say their record. Through 66 games, the Thunder was 47-19 last season, that lockout abbreviated season. The Thunder's 48-17 headed into Friday's game. So here's my question. Do you think the Thunder's better this year? Darnell.
I think it depends on, what you're asking and what you mean by better. I think statistically, any number of different measures statistically will tell you that they're better. But I think there's still a concern that without James Harden, how much better can this team be in the playoffs? And really, that's all that matters for this Thunder team right now is the playoff success. And if they're not better in the playoffs, then no, they're not better. So I think it all depends on what the definition of better is.
John, what's your definition? We lost John's audio. We'll get back with him in just a second. Jenny, what's your definition of better? Is the Thunder better this year?
I think Darnell brings up a really interesting point that if you look at statistics, there are probably a lot of indicators that say that this team's better. But, I just kind of use the look and feel test. And right now, this doesn't feel like a team that's better than it was a year ago. If you said after the game on Friday they were heading into the playoffs, I think a lot of us would say, I don't know if this team's in a better spot than they were heading into the playoffs a year ago. So I think a lot of it is just, what's the feel? What's the eye test? And right now there's this two-man game going on, the feeling like there's not really the third option there. A lot of, guys sticking that arm out saying, give me the ball here, hand it off to me, and I'll go try to make a play instead of sort of having that flow and rhythm that they did a year ago. And then obviously the second unit, I think, is a question. How good is that second unit? And they've been up and down and all over the place. So I think right now when you look at just sort of that feel test, I don't think they feel quite as good as they were a year ago. And that's, they've got some time to figure it out. They can get there. But if they had to head into the playoffs after Friday's game, I don't think I'd feel quite as good about their chances as I did a year ago.
Darnell, let's start at the top line, though, with the Thunder. Is Kevin Durant better than he was a year ago at this time? And is that the way the Thunder compensates for James Harden's absence?
I think he is better, and I think the last 11 games since the All-Star break are sort of putting some fear or some doubts into some people's heads and minds. But if you can't forget about what he did the first 64 games of the season, before the All-Star break, or 54 games of the season. Before the All-Star break, Kevin Durant was phenomenal. He's on a historic pace with the 50-40-90. Only 5 players in NBA history have qualified for that. So, and then the scoring is still there. He's on pace to lead the league in scoring for the 4th consecutive season. His playmaking has gotten better. For the most part, his turnovers have gone down. He's become a better rebounder, a better defender. So he's gotten better in all these different ways. And I think this most recent stretch where he just hasn't been himself is kind of what has brought about concern in a lot of people's minds. But I think he's a better player.
I'll throw this out to the group. but better playmaker, because that's really the perception and the reality of what was missing or what was lost when Harden left. Durant showed a lot of playmaking abilities that, some of us thought he might not have. Darnell, you were always saying that's what they're trying to develop. But, through the All-Star, up until the All-Star break, Durant was, his dribbling had improved immensely. That hasn't been the case. Are you ready to say that he's a better playmaker and the kind of playmaker that can make those plays at crunch time in the NBA playoffs?
Jenny, you want to tackle that one?
Sure, yeah. I think it's a little bit up in the air. I think that, last year was where we saw Durant really take off as, a shot maker in crunch time. Is he going to emerge as a playmaker in crunch time? I think that remains to be seen. I'm not ready to buy just yet that he is. It took some time before he became a shot maker in crunch time, so it figures that it would take some time before he's a playmaker in crunch time. And I think everybody wants a playmaker to make up for James Harden. I do too. But, part of the thing with James Harden was he was not only making plays for other guys, but he was making plays for Kevin Durant too. He was getting shots that helped Kevin Durant get freed up. So Kevin Durant being a playmaker is great, but somebody's got to help him too. So, I think this is just the next evolution of Durant's game, and maybe it's too soon to say he's ready to do it in crunch time.
Through the miracles of modern technology, we're hoping to have John Rohde with us. John, can you weigh in on this, and are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right.
It's a miracle.
Yeah. It's your fault, Darnell. Everything was good till you joined it.
It's all
Here's
my fault.
the deal. If you notice throughout history, the short history of the Thunder, everybody who's been asked to step up has. Harden was asked to step up as a playmaker. He excelled. Ibaka became a starter. He excelled. Tabo's been asked to shoot three-pointers. He's excelled. Westbrook a little bit more each year. And this year, it's Durant as a playmaker because Harden's left, like you said. We'll have to wait and see. There's a reason to have confidence, though, Darnell, because each one of these guys has stepped up when they've been asked to do something either a little bit more or a little bit differently.
Speaking of how all those players have stepped up, speaking of how all those players have developed, them and others, looking at the curve, the narrative of this team and its incredible improvement from that first season here in Oklahoma City. Yet there is this persistent criticism of Scott Brooks. We can call it a minority, but we must call it a vocal minority. And basically, what you hear now is whatever problems the Thunder really have, trace back to Scott Brooks. So my question, I'll start with you, John. What criticism of Scott Brooks is legitimate?
Well, we don't know. Like I was asking somebody today, Reggie Jackson is stepping up. Now, is he stepping up despite Scott Brooks or because of him? I mean, he didn't do it before. Is the reason he didn't do it before is because he wasn't asked? Should he have been asked? No matter what success the Thunder has, somebody's always going to have a different way. If there were set plays and the Thunder ran a certain kind of offense that didn't take advantage of Westbrook's speed or Durant's shooting, we'd all be saying, well, why aren't you running that kind of offense instead of the offense you're running? You look around, and whenever there's a coaching change, you always ask yourself, well, who could they have? Who's better? Fire Stoops. Well, who are you going to get who's better? Well, here, the intriguing ones are, I wonder what Doc Rivers would do with this team. I wonder what Spoelstra would do with this team. I wonder what Pop would do with this team. And you know what? That's about it. Those are about the only three guys that I find more interesting or intriguing or the opposite or the answer to Scott Brooks. That's not many.
Those guys also don't seem to fit sort of with the Thunder culture.
Exactly. Exactly my point, yes.
And that's something that sort of the critics of Scott Brooks sort of leave out or fail to consider when they're criticizing him, Darnell. But there are some legitimate criticisms of it. I don't think player development is one of them, Darnell. Maybe offensive tactics, X's and O's. They look pretty good coming out of timeouts. What do you think is legitimate among what the critics are throwing up there about Brooks?
Well, first, I'd like to add three names to John Rohde's list, and that's Rick Adelman, Jeff Van Gundy, and I'd say I forgot the third guy I was going to mention. But there are a couple of Tom Thibodeau in Chicago. You see what he's done with that defensive team without Derrick Rose, for that Bulls team. I think those three guys will be fits on and off the court with the Thunder organization. But that's few and far between. I mean, that's neither here nor there. To answer your question, I would say that the X's and O's, he struggled at times to draw up plays that take advantage of anything outside of Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook's skill set, and that's basically isolation basketball. So I think a lot of people want to see this team really move the ball and get others involved, especially in late game situations, because unlike last year, Kevin Durant hasn't hit the big shots at the end of games this year. There haven't been a lot of close games, but in those close games, Kevin Durant hasn't hit them this year. So I think the X's and O's is probably one of the main criticisms that's probably fair.
Jenny, legit criticisms of Scott Brooks beyond anything that Darnell or John have brought up?
I think probably most recently playing Derek Fisher, I think it goes back to comfort. I think that's where, if there's a fault to be ascribed to this whole thing, it's that Scott Brooks feels comfortable with Derek Brooks. It's with that's a whole other sport. I totally jumped the shark with Derek Fisher, but and so I think we can all sort of associate with that. When you're comfortable with something, you go back to it. Same restaurant, same shop, all that sort of stuff. I think we all can get that. But when you look at games where they really need some defensive help, I think that's when people see Ronnie Brewer sitting on the end of the bench and say, now wait a second, this guy looks like he could help. Why not give him a shot? I think that, sort of sticking with what feels comfortable to him, it goes back to, when they play the Heat and they don't go small, that's sort of a comfort thing. Scott Brooks feeling comfortable going with his regular rotation. I think it's one of the things that makes him a good coach. One of the things that makes him popular with his players is his consistency. That they're not going to have to second guess how things are going to go. But at the same time, I think that has become something of an Achilles heel for him too, and that he can stick to things too long because he's comfortable with them.
That's a Mike, if I can. That's a great point Jenny just brought up. I think that system that he likes to stick to is what makes him a good coach, but it also could be what's keeping him from becoming a great coach.
He did go off the sheet a little bit in the playoffs last year against San Antonio, going away from his rotation a bit. He shortened his bench. He didn't get a lot of credit for that, but the Thunder's down 0-2, comes home, wins 2, goes back to San Antonio and takes, gets game 5. He was freelancing a little bit then. He had kind of gone off his pattern, and that's something we kind of forget when we talk about Scott Brooks. Guys, let's make this one a quick round here, and let's talk about the most important Thunder reserve not named Kevin Martin. Who you got, John?
Well, I got the same guy I've had for the last 3 years, Nick Collison.
Is that because he's sort of the steady Eddie, the one sort of permanent piece of this second unit?
I think there's greatness in not screwing something up. And Eric Maynor had that greatness 2 years ago. Go in there, give me what I'm expecting, don't screw it up, and be consistent, be reliable, dependable. These are all Nick Collison traits. He's the man to me.
Jenny, who's your most valuable Thunder reserve not named Kevin Martin?
Yeah, I think it's got to be Nick Collison. And you know what? I think more and more I'm coming around to this idea of the second unit needing to be way more defensive-minded. I mean, James Harden is gone, so you don't have that offensive firepower. Why not just really, really knuckle down defensively with this second unit? And I think if you can do that, you're going to get some easy run-out baskets out of that defensive-minded lineup. And this, of course, goes back to my desire to see Ronnie Brewer play some more minutes. But the guy that would anchor that would be Nick Collison. And John's right. You never question whether Nick Collison had a good game. I'm sure there are games that he hasn't played well, but I don't ever see them because I'm just so used to him getting exactly what he gets every night defensively, draws charges, does those sorts of things. So go defensive Scott Brooks with your second unit and anchor it around this guy.
Darnell, Jenny kind of changed the question, but I like it, so let's go with it. The Thunder's second unit. You and I talked about this the other day and how it's changed a little bit. Does it need to go in the direction of the Chicago Bulls, who never left the reserves out there without either Michael Jordan or Scottie Pippen? Do you think that's what we'll see, and is that sort of some resolution to making the second unit better for the rest of the regular season and into the playoffs?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, because, Nick Collison is sort of that guy that people would automatically assume. But, I throw a curveball at you and say Kevin Durant. He's a part of that second unit, and that goes back to what Scott Brooks did much earlier in the season and bringing Kevin Durant out of the game earlier to let him play with that second unit. So that's a credit to Scott Brooks and one of the ways that he has adjusted and been more flexible this season. So it's not all bad with Brooks, going back to the earlier topic. But with this second unit, I think when Kevin Durant is on his game offensively, that's a tough unit. And when he's locked in, defensively, because as we know, when he's in that second unit, they're normally playing him at the power forward spot and Nick Collison at center, as opposed to Hasheem Thabeet with Nick Collison. So if Kevin Durant can lock down the four-man spot, I think that helps them tremendously defensively. And then if he's aggressive like he needed to be more of in San Antonio Monday night, so that thing didn't get away from him, then I think that's when that second unit is really dangerous, and then it could become something special.
See, solving Thunder problems for you. To reset, this is the Thunder Thursday Hangout on News OK Live. Thunder Thursdays are sponsored by our good friends at Advent Heat, Air, and Plumbing, on call 24/7 for Thunder fans. Couple more questions, guys. Darnell, you brought this out in your blog. You guys, your coverage last night of the Thunder's win over Utah really put an exclamation mark on it. Is Kendrick Perkins saying to us with his performance the last three games what Kobe Bryant said a couple weeks ago? Amnesty that. Darnell?
I think so. You're right. He can't say it because it'll come off with him not looking so well. But I think he can say it. His performance is basically speaking for itself. When you hold Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, and Al Jefferson, that's two Hall of Famers and an all-star caliber center. I think you have to look at what he did.
We lost Darnell. He's frozen. John, there he is.
I was saying a lot of people have so many criticisms of Kendrick Perkins about he doesn't rebound enough, or he doesn't score, he can't really finish around the basket, all that efficiently. But he's doing things that's helping this team win, and I think you have to take your hat off to him for that.
John, why is Kendrick Perkins the sort of the least appreciated Thunder player?
Well, I guess I misread what Darnell wrote. You said amnesty that. I read it as amnesty that. Like, get rid of him. So I guess I misread it.
Punctuation. There need to be some punctuation in there.
Here's the thing with Perk. No fan out there, no sports writer, nobody will ever appreciate Perk as much as his coach or his teammates. And they got more of a say in it than we do. If you go in there expecting 0 points from Perk, you know what? You'll get it. And as long as it doesn't matter, that's not what they're looking for. Hey, we're groaning just as along with all the other fans when the ball goes into Perk and he starts to try to make a move before the delay a game flag comes out for a 5-yard penalty. I mean, we're all there in the same thing. But the coaches and the teammates, man, they love the guy. I don't see an amnesty in him at all.
There's still a guest book floating on the Boston Globe website of people who signed in mourning when the Boston Celtics traded Kendrick Perkins to the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Doc Rivers spoke about it the other day. He wants them back, man. He misses them.
Yeah, go ahead and amnesty him and watch the Celtics scoop him up. By the way, John, we're giving you a game ball for making the Thunder Thursday Hangout today, triumphing over technology. And Darnell brought up this game ball concept today, I guess in exchange with Scott Brooks about Kendrick Perkins, who said, hey, give him a game ball if you give away such things. But the question, Darnell, is why don't they give game balls in basketball? They do in football.
I think the simple reason is that it's 82 games in basketball and it's only 16 in football. That's a lot of basketballs to be toting around if you're Kevin Durant or Russell Westbrook. So logistically, I just don't think the numbers work out.
Well, they're not winning 82 games. They're probably winning 50 or they're winning 60 or something like that. And you don't have to present them all the time. John, after every football win, there's multiple football game balls given out. I checked. Those things are $99 a pop at Dick's Sporting Goods. A basketball costs half as much. Let's get something going. Let's start at why don't they give game balls?
You know what they give them for is milestones, 10,000 points, 500 wins, whatever. They could give one to Pert for being shut out again. I mean, I don't know. You can think of something, but I'm kind of with you. They should give them out more often than they do.
A baseball, of course, costs $15.
$15 for a baseball?
$15 for a baseball.
So you get a dozen baseballs is $170?
It's pretty expensive. I think you can probably get a discount.
No wonder baseball's gone to hell.
There's a lot of good advertisers at the Oklahoman that'll give you a discount. Game balls to everybody who watched this. Jenny, you're still with us. I thought you left.
Yeah.
Game balls. Why don't they give them out?
I don't know. I think it would be a good idea. And, listen, I know these guys have trophies coming out their noses. Everybody's got trophies for everything. But you know what? It'd be nice for guys that don't necessarily make a bunch of all-star games or get a bunch of, Player of the Week awards. I mean, every once in a while, I think Thabo Sefolosha would like it if he took something home other than, a scowl from Russell Westbrook. So go ahead and give out some game balls, Scott Brooks.
A game ball for you, a game ball for John, a game ball for Darnell, and a game ball for those who stuck with us throughout this Thunder Thursday hangout on News OK Live. That's all for this time, but you can stay with the best coverage team every day at News OK and every morning in the Oklahoman. A reminder, Thunder Thursdays are sponsored by our good friends at Advent Heat, Air, and Plumbing, on call 24/7 for Thunder fans.